It's great to have you here. Maybe not everyone knows, but Poland and Singapore are cooperating on fintechs and on the regulation of the market. What can we learn from you, from your experience?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's quite interesting. I think just last month, the Polish regulators, as well as the Singapore regulators, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the MAS, actually signed a MOU to cooperate on fintech. So I think that's quite an exciting movement. And I think one of the first countries that MAS has actually signed up in Central Europe. Certainly, I think we do see a lot of synergies between Singapore and Poland. Particularly, I think having been here and at this conference, we see that financial institutions in Poland are very innovative. They are looking at innovation in a very, very strong way, and which is why you've got such a great turnout at this conference as well. The whole idea behind the cooperation or the MOU is to look at and to also help the thinking, the policy thinking around regulations, how do we regulate, as well as to assist specific companies, companies from Poland going out to Singapore or the other way around as to how to make that transition. So, it's quite exciting. It was just signed last month. So we'll wait to see, how things are progressing and what the outcome is.
Yes, sure. There is a solution called regulatory Sandbox that is used and introduced in Singapore.
That's right. So the regulatory Sandbox was actually set up in Singapore, I think announced about 1 year ago. And since then, there have been a couple of players in the Sandbox. And really the Sandbox is to ensure that regulations do not front-run innovation. If we are looking at growing a viable fintech space and to be a fintech hub, we need to ensure that we don't over-regulate, but at the same time manage the risks properly. And that's where the regulatory sandbox looks to come in, where players who have innovative products or innovative services can actually play within that sandbox. They may not need to be licensed, but they would need to comply with a set of guidelines that the sandbox will have in order for them to test their technology, test their products and test their services. So I think the regulatory sandbox is one of a few tools that regulators can use to essentially promote fintech. Singapore is one of the few in the Asia-Pacific region who have had regulatory sandboxes. Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, for example, also have sandboxes as well.
So it's a popular solution. And when it comes to the regulation, what should the regulatory body focus on? The risks or maybe the benefits to customers, to consumers?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a balance. In any new solution, we always need to understand, customer and customer protection. But at the same time, we do not want regulations to stifle innovation or stifle financial institutions or startups using innovation. So there needs to be a balance. And I think the approach to regulations should be risk-based, and perhaps an activity-based approach as well. So that you have players that will have some room to move and to innovate.
And in the innovative world, what is the future of regulation? Where should it go?
Oh, that's a good question. I think regulators should be very practical here. Certainly, in some areas there is a need for more regulation. In the payment space, for example, there's been a lot of innovation in that space, and therefore you see some regulations around the world catching up. But I think what we need to do is to ensure that regulations don't stop new sort of innovation. So I think there has to be a good balance for regulators to actually regulate where there is a high risk or there is a risk that needs to be mitigated, and at the same time leave some room for innovation to flourish as well.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. It's good speaking with you.